Welcome to another episode of the Black Eskimo Podcast. I am your host, David DaCosta. This particular episode, really just kind of came out of the blue. I really just decided about doing it yesterday. And you'll see what it is as you tune in. You see the names listed, so check it out and catch you next Monday. I discovered Boyce Watkins, I don't know, was it like last year? 2018, 2017, somewhere in that time frame over the last couple of years. And it was just really randomly, I was on YouTube and stumbled across one of his videos. I think he was talking about something that someone I think that was interviewed on another show that I've seen. But, I kind of tuned in here and there. And, I found that he had some interesting things to say. I came to find out that he was from Kentucky, that he was or graduated as a professor of finance. He has a PhD in finance. I thought it was kind of cool. I felt that he was definitely trying to uplift those who really wanted to kind of get away from the traditional 9-to-5 hustle. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, I'm totally for that. And so, I continued to listen to him. And through the course of listening to him or listening to his YouTube channel, I noticed that it wasn't all about finance. He definitely would deviate from time to time and talk about things within pop culture. He'd talk about celebrities, celebrity culture, rap music, hip-hop music. Because I do make that distinction between the two. I don't think hip-hop and rap are the same thing. I think rap is a more commercialized representation of hip-hop. We'll say the bastardized or the bastard of hip-hop, we'll say. But anyway, so, I wasn't really big on that aspect of his commentary. He kind of merged the two. So he started talking. He was talking about Jay-Z becoming a billionaire. I think Jay-Z's been dubbed as the first hip hop artist to become a billionaire. The thing about Jay-Z is I never saw Jay-Z as a hip hop artist. He's been constantly quoted as saying, "I'm not a rapper. I'm a hustler." I never, even though Jay-Z worked with different hip-hop artists, had DJ Premier produce for him, grew up in Brooklyn, grew up listening to Run DMC, and came up within the culture, but what he talks about most is the fact that he used to be a drug dealer. So when he says hustler, that's what he's referring to. He's referring to being a hustler. And so I never saw Jay-Z as a hip-hop artist, and I don't think he ever regarded himself as a hip-hop artist. So that idea that he's being dubbed as the first hip hop artist turned billionaire, I can't run with that distinction or that label. I don't regard him as a hip hop artist. And I completely get the idea or the reasoning behind Boyce talking about Jay-Z becoming a billionaire, because he's a finance. Boyce Watkins is a finance professor. He doesn't teach anymore, but that's his distinction. That's his accreditation. That's what he came out of school with, a PhD in finance. So that's clearly of interest to him. It's funny, what I've noticed is I being in the entertainment industry and in media, you can kind of tell when people have money. There's a certain air about them. There's a certain look about them. They have a certain polish to them. And if you look at Boyce, and I'm not going to tell you that everybody can notice it, but he looks very comfortable. He looks like he's living well. Like probably gets facials done and eats well and travels, and he seems comfortable. And that's a beautiful thing, because there are a lot of brothers who are not comfortable, whether in America, Canada, or elsewhere. So it's nice to see a brother doing his thing. And so this idea of him breaking down, Jay-Z's assets and holdings and various business ventures, and showing basically how those particular assets and business holdings have manifested into or have accumulated to this magical $1 billion mark. That's mildly interesting to me, because I've never been a Jay-Z fan, and I'm not I'm not hating on Jay-Z. I've just never been a Jay-Z fan musically, and Jay-Z's music is absolutely an extension of his personality. And when I go back to the 90s into the 2000s, his music was very empty to me. Lacking substance, lacking depth. It was largely about the hustler lifestyle, being a drug dealer, referring to himself as Jehovah. That's blasphemous for me. That's blasphemous straight up and down. When you start comparing yourself to God, but people say, well, Rakim calls himself Rakim Allah. I guess you could say that, but when I look at Jay-Z, I don't like that Jehovah thing. I never liked that nickname because he gave it to himself. This God MC, I never saw anything godly about Jay-Z. So this idea of him being a billionaire, do your thing, but I'm not impressed by that, especially when you look at the business world. Being a billionaire in 2019, I was about to say 1999, being a billionaire in 2019 is really not that big of a deal. When you look at people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Jeff-Bezos, the owner of Amazon, these guys, I mean, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are worth like 50, 60, 70 billion. Jeff Bezos is worth over 100 billion. So to say you're worth a billion, I guess as a black man who came out of Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, ex-crack dealer, I mean, I guess that's a feat that he was able to transition from that world into the business world. But strictly from a dollar standpoint, within that world, within the corporate America, it's not a big deal. And I guess for me, it's not a big deal mainly because I don't care about money like that. We all need money, and I'm not saying that money doesn't have any importance in our lives, but I don't care who has a billion or 100 million or 500 billion. Whatever the number is, I could care less who has what in the way of money. Like, rich people don't move me. I'm not impressed by that. So this idea of Jay-Z being a billionaire, I think it means a lot more in America than it does here in Canada, because it really means nothing to me. I could care less. I don't care for him as an artist, and I certainly don't care what kind of money he has. But I understand why Boyce would mention that he has that money. I completely get that. Boyce is a very opinionated guy, and it's cool. But I find that it's easy to take a break from him because he kind of rambles on. Like you'll look at a video, you'll click on the subject matter, and he'll talk about the subject, but then he'll kind of have this kind of preamble where he goes off on a tangent and rambles on for 10, 15 minutes, and then they come back to the topic and then kind of deviate again. So, but here's the deal. You can clearly see that his subscriptions are high within the world. I'm not going to say he's a Steve Harvey or whoever you can think of. I guess when Tavis Smiley was popular or when he was still doing his thing on PBS, he's not on that level, but he's known. He's known. And within the world of black listenership, he definitely has a strong base. I heard about Paris-Milan. Something about that name doesn't sound real to me. And I'm not hating her. I'm not hating on her. I like what she has to say by and large. I've listened to probably about 3 or 4 of her YouTube videos. And she's got her YouTube video / commentary. And, she's got some interesting things to say. Paris-Milan, though, the name, I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of people have aliases. I get that. Jamie Foxx's real name is not Jamie Foxx. I think it's like Eric something. Eric something or another. I can't recall his last name, his government name. So, aliases are not a new thing. But the name Paris-Milan, I mean, Paris is a city in France. Milan is a city in Italy. So it just kind of sounds like she put the two together. Even though the name Paris is not... There are some black people with the name Paris. I think there's a guy named Paris who is a conservative he's a conservative commentator on CNN. And then I believe Michael Jackson's daughter, her name is Paris as well. So Paris is not, it's not that you can't find black people with the name Paris. But Paris-Milan definitely sounds like a made-up name, which really doesn't mean anything. Because like I said, if you're online and you don't want to use your government name, that's fine. That's fine. I choose to use my government name because that's just me, though. I've been using that name. They talk about the term byline. I mean, I've been a journalist for over 25 years, so that's the name I go with. I don't know if I would really categorize what Paris does as media. It may be a broader or fall under the broader umbrella of media, but I don't think she's a commentator. I don't know if she's necessarily a journalist per se. Maybe she is. She definitely sounds intelligent. I definitely get intelligence. I definitely get insight. And, there's some fairly substantive content on her site or on her YouTube channel. So I'm not going to say that she's not, she may be a journalist. Maybe she went to school for journalism. Who knows? But, so we'll say that she falls under the broader heading of media. She talked about Beyonce and how Beyonce and Jay-Z had gone to the Raptors and Warriors game in Oakland. And how there was a white woman who is the girlfriend, I believe, girlfriend or wife of one of the, I think one of the owners of the Warriors. And you see the video. Jimmy Kimmel ran the video, and it basically shows this woman leaning over, kind of bypassing Beyonce or paying her no mind to talk to Jay-Z. And so Paris kind of went off and talked about how certain white women don't understand the girl code. But then she kind of went off on a tangent where she started talking about this idea that white women think they're superior to biracial women, meaning black and white women, or women that are of black and white parentage, light-skinned women. I don't even, she kind of lost me on that. She lost me on that because I didn't understand why she started to single out the racial makeup, meaning biracial or mulatto, because I think a lot of white people think they're superior to black people, period. It doesn't matter if you're primarily black or of African descent, or you're biracial, or you're of mixed race. It doesn't make it. So when she got into this whole breakdown, this kind of these subgroups, or I didn't understand that. If she just said basically this woman clearly thought she was superior to Beyonce and didn't care, then that would make more sense to me. She kind of seems like she's a little too invested in color. Yeah, I think some of us as black people are a little too into color. We're a little too affected by color. And I think some of us really, and I guess really, maybe I'm not supposed to understand that because she does live in America. And I'm not going to say that we don't have color or class issues or colorism in Canada, because we do. But I think we in Canada have a better relationship. When I say we, I think blacks and whites get along better in Canada than they do in America. I think racism, having lived in America, having family and friends in America, you definitely hear there is a greater divide. And I think that's what she's speaking to, because I didn't see it in that way. I just saw it as this woman is sitting, she has courtside seats. Her husband has money and status, and she wants to talk to Jay-Z, and she's thinking, who cares about you, Beyonce? Because that's what happens. And when you're moving in those circles and everybody has money, she's not going to view Beyonce the way a fan would view Beyonce, or the average person would view Beyonce. I mean, I met Beyonce long before the fame. I met her back in the late 90s, actually, when she came to Toronto. When she was in Destiny's Child, the first incarnation of Destiny's Child. And, if I met Beyonce now, I wouldn't treat it as a big deal, because I don't see her as a big deal. I don't dislike her per se, but I'm not really into what she does musically or otherwise. But, so you really can't be surprised that this white woman who is moving in money circles is going to be viewing her any other kind of way. Why would she? Now, I completely understand why Beyonce would be annoyed by it, because it was disrespectful. Sure it was. I mean, the idea that you see a woman with her husband and you're kind of like, yeah, whatever, Beyonce, I want to talk to, the person you're with. I get that. Paris, she seems like a bright girl or bright woman, and she's doing her thing. She, just like Boyce, she has a sizable following. I'm not saying millions of people, but even if she has 100,000 subscribers, that's still sizable enough. Especially with how competitive YouTube is. YouTube is not a platform where a lot of people rise to that level, at least not without manipulating numbers. I think she has a legitimate following. But I do know people are manipulating the numbers, just like they are when you see certain people on Instagram with 600,000, a million followers. You have to kind of question it. If they're not commercial entities, you kind of have to wonder if they're fudging the numbers. But I think Paris definitely has a legitimate following, as I do in the case of Boyce as well. But two interesting figures within black culture, black American culture. We'll call it's black American culture, but it's also internet culture or social media culture in today's times. But interesting.